My beloved brothers and sisters, have you ever noticed how some people were comfortable with you when you were weak, when you were constantly seeking their approval, and when you depended on them for your emotional strength? But the moment you began to grow closer to Allah, the moment you began to respect yourself, and the moment you stopped begging for their validation, their behavior toward you suddenly changed. They became distant, uncomfortable, and sometimes even hostile, not because you harmed them, but because they could no longer control you. Toxic people do not fear your success, they do not fear your wealth, and they do not fear your appearance, but they deeply fear the believer whose heart is connected to Allah, whose peace does not depend on people, and whose strength cannot be broken by rejection or abandonment. 1. You rely only on Allah, not on people. My brothers and sisters, one of the most powerful changes that happens in the life of a believer is when their heart slowly stops depending on people and begins to rely completely on Allah. Before this change, many people feel emotionally weak because they attach their happiness, their peace, and their sense of security to human beings who are themselves imperfect, unstable, and temporary. They begin to believe that certain people are the source of their strength, and without them, they feel lost, empty, and afraid. Toxic people recognize this emotional dependence and they use it as a way to control you. They make you feel like you cannot function without them, like your peace depends on their presence, and like your worth is tied to their acceptance. They may give you attention when you obey them and withdraw it when you do not, creating a cycle where you constantly seek their approval and fear losing them. This emotional dependence becomes a chain around your heart, preventing you from realizing that your true strength was never in people, but in Allah all along. But the moment you truly understand and accept that Allah alone is your provider, your protector, and your supporter, something begins to shift deep inside you. You begin to realize that people are only a part of your life, not the foundation of your life. You understand that people can leave, people can change, and people can disappoint you. But Allah never leaves, never changes, and never abandons His servants. When your heart depends on Allah, you no longer panic when someone walks away from you, because you know that what is meant for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never written for you. Allah says in the Quran, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. And this means that Allah alone is enough to protect you, guide you, and support you through every difficulty. When toxic people see that your heart no longer depends on them, they lose the power they once had over you. They realize they cannot manipulate you through fear, guilt, or emotional pressure anymore, because your peace is no longer in their hands. Your strength now comes from your trust in Allah, and this is something no human being can control, weaken, or take away from you. 2. You do not seek validation from people. My brothers and sisters, one of the greatest forms of emotional freedom a believer can experience is when they stop seeking validation from people and begin seeking acceptance from Allah alone. Many people spend their lives trying to be approved by others. They adjust their behavior, their words, and even their identity just to be accepted, loved, or praised. They feel happy when people approve of them and broken when people reject them. And this creates a dangerous emotional dependence because their self-worth is no longer in their own heart, but in the hands of others. Toxic people recognize this weakness and they use it to control you. They give you approval when you serve their interests and withdraw their approval when you do not, making you feel insecure, confused, and desperate to win their acceptance again. This keeps you trapped in a cycle where you are constantly trying to prove your worth to people who never truly value you. But when your faith becomes strong, you begin to realize something powerful and life-changing. You realize that your value does not come from people, it comes from Allah, who created you with purpose, dignity, and honor. You understand that people's opinions are temporary, constantly changing based on their moods, their desires, and their own insecurities. But Allah's knowledge of you is perfect and complete. Allah knows your intentions, your struggles, your sacrifices, and the battles you fight in silence. When you begin to live for Allah instead of living for people, you no longer feel broken by their rejection, and you no longer depend on their praise to feel worthy. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught that whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah, Allah will take care of them and protect their honor. When toxic people see that you no longer need their approval to feel complete, they lose their emotional control over you. They realize they cannot manipulate you through praise or rejection anymore, because your confidence now comes from your relationship with Allah. You become calm, secure, and emotionally independent, and this inner strength makes toxic people uncomfortable, because they know they can no longer control someone whose worth is defined by Allah, not by human approval. 3. You walk away from disrespect without fear. My brothers and sisters, one of the most powerful signs of a true believer is the ability to walk away from disrespect without fear, without desperation, and without feeling the need to prove their worth to anyone. Many people remain in situations where they are constantly disrespected, ignored, or emotionally hurt, not because they are weak in character, but because they are afraid. They are afraid of being alone, afraid of losing someone they have become attached to, and afraid of facing life without the presence of people they once depended on. Toxic people recognize this fear, and they use it to maintain control over you. They believe that no matter how poorly they treat you, you will stay, you will tolerate it, and you will continue to accept less than you deserve, because they think you are too emotionally attached to leave. They may ignore your feelings, disrespect your boundaries, and make you feel small, but they continue this behavior because they believe you will never walk away. However, when your heart becomes connected to Allah, your understanding begins to change in a deep and powerful way. You begin to realize that your dignity is not given by people, but by Allah, and no human being has the right to take that dignity away from you. Allah says in the Quran that honor belongs to Allah, His Messenger, and the believers. And when you truly understand this, you stop begging for respect from people who do not value you. You stop chasing people who repeatedly hurt you. And you stop trying to convince people to see your worth. Instead, you quietly protect your peace and remove yourself from environments that damage your heart and weaken your soul. This does not mean you hate them, and it does not mean you wish harm upon them, but it means you respect yourself enough to no longer remain in places where your presence is not honored. Walking away is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of inner strength and trust in Allah. It means you believe that Allah can replace what you lost with something better, something healthier, and something that brings peace instead of pain. It means you understand that holding on to toxic people only delays the blessings Allah has prepared for you. When toxic people see that you are no longer afraid to walk away, they begin to fear you because they realize they have lost the emotional control they once had over you. They realize they cannot manipulate you with guilt, fear, or emotional pressure anymore because your heart is no longer dependent on their presence. Your strength now comes from your trust in Allah. And when a believer reaches this level of emotional independence, they become unshakable, calm, and free in a way that toxic people cannot control or break. 4. You control your emotions and do not react to provocation. My brothers and sisters, one of the greatest forms of strength a believer can develop is emotional control. Because toxic people often rely on provoking your emotions in order to control you. They understand that when you react emotionally, you become vulnerable. And when you become vulnerable, they gain influence over your peace, your thoughts, and your behavior. They may insult you, criticize you unfairly, ignore you intentionally, or say hurtful words designed to disturb your heart, not because they are strong, but because they want to see you lose control. They want to see you become angry, desperate, or emotionally unstable, because your emotional reaction gives them a sense of power over you. When you react impulsively, you give them exactly what they want, which is proof that they can still affect your inner state and disturb your peace. But a true believer understands that not every action deserves a reaction, and not every insult deserves a response. A believer understands that emotional discipline is a form of spiritual strength, and that protecting your peace is more important than proving a point. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught us a powerful truth when he said that the strong person is not the one who can defeat others physically, but the one who can control themselves when they are angry. This teaches us that real strength is not in overpowering others, but in mastering yourself. When you learn to control your emotions, you stop allowing people to control your inner state. You stop giving them the power to disturb your peace. and you begin to respond with calmness, wisdom, and patience instead of reacting with anger and impulsiveness. When your heart becomes connected to Allah, you begin to see things differently. You realize that many people act from their own pain, their own insecurities, and their own inner emptiness, and you no longer feel the need to react to every negative behavior directed at you. Instead, you protect your energy, you protect your peace, and you trust Allah to handle what you cannot control. Allah loves those who are patient, and patience is not weakness, but a form of powerful inner control that protects you from being dragged into unnecessary emotional battles. When toxic people see that their words no longer disturb you, when they see that their attempts to provoke you no longer cause emotional reactions, they begin to feel powerless and frustrated. They realize they can no longer control you through emotional manipulation because your peace is now protected by your faith. Your calmness becomes your shield, and your emotional discipline becomes your strength. You no longer react out of pain, you respond with wisdom. And this emotional independence makes toxic people fear you because they know they have lost their ability to disturb your heart. 5. You focus on your relationship with